can go really, really well or really, really badly, depending on how engaged you guys are and whether you've got heaps of questions. You sent me a lot of questions through, which is good. What I don't tend to do is come in and talk at you and have a presentation and all that kind of thing. I much prefer it to be interactive. So, you know, it's really open to you to ask me questions. I'll just give you a quick background. I've been running Red Evolution since about 2003. I worked at Fifth Ring, who I know you've already spoken to. I set up their e-business department. Then I decided I kind of wanted to do it on my own. So I left, like a lot of people do. And I think one of the questions is, why did the agency start? It's just kind of, I just wanted to do it. That was about it. Like a lot of people do. There's a really great book by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth, and it's worth reading. It's not a difficult read, it's a really light read, and it's about why people start businesses and how they often don't do well in business because of the reason they start a business. So I started a business doing this because I did this and I enjoyed doing it, so I started a business doing it, which isn't always the right way to go about it. Quite often, start a business, you see an opportunity, then get people who can help you deliver that opportunity and make the business happen. But the E-Myth talks about how people, like if I'm a good carpenter, I'll start a business as a carpenter because I'm good at it, but it doesn't mean you're good at running a business. But that's the reason I did it. I was on my own for a couple of years, and then it's just grown organically from there. There's nearly 10 of us now, 9 of us, and somebody working with us who might join us, heading up creative side of the business. So yeah, since 2003 we've started out as a web company, building websites, doing that sort of thing. I came at it from the geeky side, programming, that kind of thing. I did the master's degree here at Robert Gordon's anyway, in information systems. I studied at the school up there that did building surveying. I decided not to practice as a building surveyor because this was about 1995 and I started fiddling around with the internet. So I did the master's degree in information systems to sort of transition. Then I worked as a researcher working on web-based e-learning at the university for a while, and then freelanced and did various other things, finished up at Fifth Ring, then left, started the business. So that's kind of the background. Red Evolution's got designers, coders, strategists, marketing people. So although we're only small, you know, we cover all of the sort of things that you need. Julie's a chartered marketer. He's our sort of main codey guy, and then we've got people who, like Rob did a degree in graphic design, but he's got into front end stuff, so he's kind of just CSS and all that kind of designy type stuff that web people do. And we've got other people who did computer science at Robert Gordon's, and one guy who did the degree for internet and multimedia, which I don't think runs anymore, but it's kind of like when you're not really a designer but you're not really a geek, you're somewhere in between. It's probably a pretty good course, but I don't know if it runs anymore. In 2015, we started formally moving into more of an inbound digital marketing type business, becoming more of an inbound digital marketing type business. We'd always kind of done what we did with a business focus rather than just we like building websites, but we kind of formalised it. We became HubSpot partners and started buying into the whole inbound philosophy. Recently, I rebadged our homepage and slightly changed the messaging very slightly to say that we're a digital marketing agency. And that was really driven, although you can still see we're talking about inbound marketing, that was really driven because people are looking for digital marketing agencies, they're not looking for inbound marketing agencies. If you do a quick bit of research around inbound marketing agency in SEMrush, I don't know if you're familiar with SEMrush, it's a great tool for keyword research, competitor analysis and heaps of other things. So in the US, that's the data. I'm going to take the UK data. You can see that an inbound marketing agency is getting maybe 100 and odd searches a month, about 140, you can see there the search volume, 140 searches a month. And if you compare that to digital marketing, that's about 2,500, I think. So I'm a big believer in selling people what they want to buy, what they're looking for. If they call it digital marketing, then why shouldn't I call it digital marketing? Ultimately, it's about helping people generate business online, whatever you call it. So we've kind of moved, that number's gone up quite dramatically quite recently, I think. I'm sure it was about 2,400, so we've maybe made the right choice. So we work with companies, we build web apps, We build websites, we do digital marketing campaigns, inbound marketing campaigns, lead generation, helping them generate business online. That's in essence what we do. So that's the kind of background. If there's anything else about where, about that side of the business, about where we came from, then feel free to ask. But really, I mean, what aspects of this amazing industry, which you guys are getting into, do you want to know about? And I'll try my best to answer. So, over to you. Silence.
I have more of a question just around like when you're talking about why you started the agency, what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
What were your goals and what were your priorities when you started the agency? Was it just to be able to be? Was it more an individual thing you wanted to do it, or did you have like an idea and a priority?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I didn't really have an idea of building an agency. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. I was, fortunate in a position where I could make my own mind up about. I didn't have like 3 kids to support or anything like that. So I just thought I just want to do this, and I kind of want to do it myself and see where it goes. So I didn't really have a very clear plan. I think if you're going to start an agency, it's probably an idea to have a plan rather than just evolve. We've just evolved slowly. But if you want to go after it in a planned way, you're almost certainly going to need funding of some sort. Whereas I just sort of bootstrapped it. First it was me, then there was 2 of us, then there was 3 of us. But I didn't really know where it was going. But that's a kind of personal thing. I'm kind of a bit like that even now. I still don't really know where we're going with it. We're having a ball and doing some good work. And I've got a couple of side projects which are really interesting. Little startup side projects, building some software, doing some other things. And it's, for me personally, it's about. I mean, I arrive at work at whatever time, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I used to work in the oil industry. I was a draftsman, served my time in the shipyard before most of you guys were born. And I'd get to work at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. By 9 o'clock I'm going, like, is it time to go home yet? Now, at 6 o'clock at night, I go, I wish it was still only lunchtime, or I wish it was 8 o'clock this morning, because I just love what I do. And so for me personally, I'm driven more by enjoying what I do than anything else. And that means for me personally, I'm not necessarily as commercially driven as I could be. I think we're getting better. We've got mouths to feed. There's 10 of us, but I'm still not as commercially driven. And I think looking at that side of it is really important. Understand what you're worth, understand the value of what you do, and don't be afraid of asking, for decent amounts of money for doing it.
Do you think that's maybe a success factor of Red Evolution? You weren't hamstrung by goals and priorities and making money, and you were just doing what you wanted to do? I
don't know. I mean, you could argue we're not successful. We're still, we're still kind of turning over not a lot of money, and we still kind of, every month, you're kind of looking at the bank balance, like a lot of agencies are. If you research this whole area of starting an agency, lots of agencies, they really live hand to mouth. It's kind of this project-driven environment, which we're trying to move away from, get more into retained work. But no, I think understanding that the financial side of it and having some sort of plan is probably not a bad idea. Yeah. Right, next, there is a list of questions that I was sent, so if someone wants to just go through those.
That's what I'm reading off.
Can I just ask as well, when you started then, did you already have a couple of projects and clients and then you just built on this, or did it literally like, oh, I'm just going to walk out of my job and sit in my house for 4 weeks and then start building some websites?
I mean, it's 2003, so it feels like, an age ago, but I don't remember. I certainly didn't have an order book full of work. No, not at all. And I met up this week with Helen Rorison, who was on this course last year. And she's basically set herself up as a one-person organisation at the moment, and she's finding it the same. She's finding getting work's really hard. It's a really competitive environment and a really uneducated market.
Yep.
I mean, they really don't know what we do. I mean, bear in mind, when you guys leave here with your master's degrees in digital marketing, you're in an elite bunch of people who really understand this stuff, assuming you apply yourself. And to me, this is an industry where if you don't live and breathe it, if you're not lying in bed thinking about it, if you're not reading blog posts in your own time, if you're not totally immersed in it, don't bother. Really, just don't get into this industry, because you need to be. I think, I said last year when I was here, I'm 54 years of age. I've been doing this stuff since God was in short pants. Every day I learn something new. So, and you really need to be like that. I mean, I don't mind saying that, you know, I've worked with people and employed people, and it's just 9 to 5. They never really go anywhere. They never grow. They never get good at what they do. They never kind of become competent. And maybe it's like that in lots of other things, you know, lots of other professions. But yeah, going back to what I said, when you leave here, assuming you do throw yourself in it and really throw yourself in it, you're in a really elite bunch of people. I've been mentored for the last couple of years by a guy in Milwaukee, I think, Square 2 Marketing. He's trying to build the first $100 million agency. I think he's at about $10 or $15 million at the moment, something like that. A guy called Mike Lieberman, Square 2 Marketing. So, you know, I've got a good relationship with Mike, and he's been helping us. And going back to what you were asking about the financial side of things, you know, he's really nailing it. I mean, he's really on it. You know, understands the value of the work that we do. And don't sell that short, because there's plenty of people out there, they just see it as a commodity, and it isn't. What you guys can do when you leave here is transform a business. If you create digital collateral, if you create a fantastic website, great content, all that kind of stuff, videos like you're doing today, if you really nail that stuff, you can turn a business from an okay business into a phenomenal business. I mean, if you look at the traffic that Red Evolution gets from search, quickly. So this is just analysing our domain. Bounces around a bit, so I don't know where it will be just at the moment. Oh, what's it doing? Sorry, I haven't found any data. Okay, looks like SEMrush is just having a wobbly. I'll try it one more time if it doesn't work. Oh, keyword analysis, that's why. Domain analytics is what I need. Try again. Right, here we go. Should come through this time. Yeah. So that number there, 38,000 quid. In theory, it would cost Red Evolution 38,000 quid a month to buy the traffic that we get organically from Google. So now a lot of that traffic is like research, people looking for information about SEO and that kind of thing. So you could argue that maybe that number's a bit skewed. But if you go and work for an organisation, and quite often big companies, you'll see the traffic that they're currently getting from Google is like, you know, 100 quid, literally 100 quid a month. If you, as digital marketing practitioners, can turn that around, and so they're getting 40, 50, 60, 100,000 quid of traffic a month coming from organic search, which is one side of what you guys will be learning about, that can be transformative, you know,
In fact,
appealing in
Dave,
search.
do you mind putting our own domain in there, because obviously you've got access to the pay tool and stuff like that, which is, I just want to see how much money you've made me, which is digitalmarketing.scot.
Yeah, I think I remember this.
Because I think it's a critical point here that we ourselves, obviously via this course and via the students, use some of these tactics in order to generate. And we have increased since year one. We've increased applicants to the course by, I think it's about 150%. So we started with 13 students in year one. Yeah, the target was 10, and in year 4 we have 32. Yeah. So again, a lot of that is because of the. So probably it's now not going to look good, but
no, zero.
Huh? Zero, okay. But the point is that basically it's proof for evidence for all the stuff that you're saying there as well.
It probably isn't helped by the .scot domain. I mean, these funky domains, there's no reason they shouldn't rank, but I mean, you're out in practice as well. How often do you see funky domains ranking against .co.uk's and .coms in commercial situations that for some reason they just rarely do?
Yeah.
A friend of mine's a managing director at Glencraft, and they've got a luxury brand, so it's Glencraft.luxury. They've been spending a small fortune and they're still making very little penetration, really. And I just wonder if it's a .luxury domain name that's not really working for them.
.luxury? Okay.
So, but I mean, I
had some hopes for
.scot,
but
lots of people linking to it. You've got 87 backlinks.
Yes.
I don't know if they're all good, bad or indifferent, but there's things starting to happen.
Yeah.
It's a case of like figuring out what you want to rank for and then doing all the research and chasing it. I don't know if it's happening at the moment like that.
It's not too bad. I think it's because we use it in conjunction with the official course page and stuff like that, so that when people click on that one there, that's more a branding tool as well. But of course, we're also trying to attract traffic directly to our own site.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed your site had loads of backlinks there. Is there a way that you can have built that backlink profile up? Was it through kind of
Yeah, there's some historical backlinks. We still like the Joomla content management system, and we used to create lots of training videos and templates and things. And so we acquired a lot of backlinks then. This was going back 2006, 2007, so there's a lot of historical things. But predominantly it's the content. So you maybe seen SEO Man, you know, that Marvel comic-esque sort of explanation of SEO. That got a lot of traction in social media, so it got a lot of links from there. And so we've never sort of actively link built. Link building, I mean, have you guys looked at link building and the whole science behind it and why you do it and how hard it is?
Yes.
It's just a nightmare, it really
Yes.
is. The best way to get links is to have fantastic content. That way you get links that nobody else can get. You can analyse your competitors' links and say, oh, they bought all these links, we'll go and buy the same links, me too, you know.
I think locally it's not too bad though, because we, SBNN and all these kinds of sources, so we have managed to attract links from those. Because if it's a local story about Aberdeen, RGU students launching a business or doing this or the other, then we do get some traction. But I think you're right. Generally speaking, it's very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, if you do things like, you've got this video running, and if you do a transcription of the video,
Yes.
that can have lots of great content. Well, lots of words anyway. Maybe it's not great, but it's, you know, lots of words, and you know, that'll almost certainly help with the whole SEO side of things, and it might help attract links and things, and people find these things interesting.
Go back to when you were saying earlier on that you started with next to no clients. What did you do early on to go and, you know, start creating that?
There was tapping into networks, people I knew. People knew I was available for work, so I'd worked with Fifth Ring as a freelancer, and so they sort of put a bit of work our way, contacting agencies who you know, back then lots of agencies still didn't have in-house expertise, so they outsourced a lot of the techie stuff, if you like. So making ourselves aware of that side of it. So, but yeah, networking, even now, you know, networking can play quite a valuable part. I rejoined a network called BNI, Business Network International, because a slot came up in a really decent group in Aberdeen. I was in it years ago. That can work quite well. You know, you get work coming your way from that. But the most powerful way is the other way.
Yeah. At what point did people start coming to you for work? Like, you know, off the back of your work or off word of mouth, or?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, it's kind of lost in the midst of time a little bit. I think we seem to have always self-sustained. We haven't been incredibly active with respect to networking and using paid search and using traditional advertising. So that leads me to believe that, generally speaking, we've sustained ourselves because of our website and people finding us and looking at what you do and making contact. And certainly now that's the case. I mean, you know, the website we've got now is hugely powerful and brings in leads every day from all over the world. But yeah, early on, I think it was probably just the networking, and then the website started to get a little bit of traction. I mean, we were using the Joomla content management system, and so we appeared for searches around that. So if people were trying to build Joomla sites and getting confused with it and struggling with it, you know, they quite often would find us if they searched.
So what's so special about your, you mentioned your website has been pretty fantastic. What's so special about your one in comparison to any other agency website, or is it just?
No, that's a great question again. Do you know, the thing is, a lot of people, a lot of agencies who set their stall out as digital marketing specialists, inbound specialists, they don't do it for themselves. So, to answer your question, we've invested heavily in doing inbound marketing for ourselves, and guess what? It works.
Do you use that as a tool to teach your clients and say, look, how we like look at you know what we've done for our own website, we can look at you too?
Sometimes we do, yeah. I mean, it's being your own best case study is not a bad thing. I mean, you know, and rightly somebody might say, I think actually David Ogilvy was quoted as saying, I'm not interested in, you know, don't tell people what you've done for other people, tell them what you can do for them, you know. And I think what he's driving at is, just because we've done a phenomenal job of our own website doesn't necessarily mean we can do it for somebody else, but it kind of hints towards an ability to do it, generally speaking, because we're in a very competitive niche, and to have done it in that niche says something. There's a huge amount of luck involved in it though. I mean, you create content and for some reason it just gets some good traction. That can have a really big impact on your website. So, you know, I'm not blind to the fact that we've been lucky along the way with some of the things that we've done. But I think it's a good thing for agencies to have strong web presences. Just because, you know, you're practicing what you're preaching. So that the reason our website has worked well for us is purely that. Yep.
If you have a client who doesn't necessarily understand like the value of the work that you do, how do you express that to them and how you can provide that value for them?
Another great question. The job that we do as digital marketers, to a large extent, is educational. It's about helping people to understand the value. So you can do that using tools like SEMrush, and you could say, show them the competitors. You could say, look what your competitors are doing, look how much traffic they're getting, look at the value of it, look at the leads it's undoubtedly generating for them. So you can use examples that they can relate to. I think to a large extent, people are a little bit embarrassed that they know so little about this stuff. They kind of know it's important, but they don't know much about it. And I don't know if you guys can relate to it, but quite often when people don't know about something that maybe they think they should, they can be a little bit, the walls come up, they get a bit defensive, sometimes even a little bit aggressive, because they're kind of annoyed. So I think using education, putting the mind at rest, trying to use the language that they understand and show them examples that they can relate to. You know, the showing them their competitors can be quite powerful, quite compelling. You know, you've got like, you know, Acme products and Fred Blogs products or whatever, and you know, Acme are nailing it, Fred's wondering why. You show them and then you say, look, they're blogging, their content and all this stuff that they're doing, it's generating all this traffic. And like the fear and greed thing kicks in and they start to understand that maybe they should take it more seriously. But there are still plenty of businesses out there who don't take it seriously, and sometimes you're in a no-win situation. You know, you just have to accept that the company's not ready. We've got a client who we did some work for and told them what they needed to do next. They wandered off and they've spent 12 to 18 months working with a well-known marketing agency. We were in seeing them 2 weeks ago and they just said, you were right 18 months ago, you know, what you told us we should have done, we now realise we should have done it. But they kind of needed to go on that journey, they needed to kind of just find out for themselves, and there's not a lot you can do about that. So, yeah, I mean, examples and things is probably the best way, and really trying to, I mean, never ever, I'm not saying any of you guys would, but never go in to show them how clever you are. Go in to sort of really listen and understand their problems. Remember, these are often people who've put blood, sweat and tears into starting a business and running a business. And you guys will run agencies. I think you're involved in running an agency or something, are you? Or you,
not
your
running,
partner
but
is,
yeah.
Okay. I mean, you know, however good, bad or indifferent you are, it's a really personal thing running any sort of business. You're standing up in front of the world and saying, we do this, come and buy it from us, you know. And you get people who will knock you down and people who will criticise you and some people who will like you. And the people you're going to work with, they're the same. You know, whether they pack meat or they're a flower shop or whatever it is they do, or an engineering company in this area, lots of engineering companies. You know, going in with that sort of empathy and saying, because I always say to businesses, look, you know, if you're looking for a vendor for this stuff, you're kind of, you know, using the wrong language. You need a partner. You need somebody to come in and really understand your business and really get under the skin of the business and help you take it forward using these fantastic tools, you know, that we've got at our disposal today. And I suppose you can win people over by taking that approach, but sometimes you will find people that just don't want to know.
And then I kind of have a follow-up question, I guess, as well, because like the value that you do provide comes at a high price. So how do you kind of justify that sort of in the same way? as well?
Yeah, that's one of the trickiest things. I think in this country, in the UK, we're catching up and people are starting to recognise the value of it. I mean, I had a really interesting email yesterday, kind of interesting. It's from a client, he's been a client for well over 10 years. I have a great relationship with him, but he is really tight, really, really tight. Never likes spending money. He'll just joke about it. I need you to do some stuff for me, but remember it's me. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And he came yesterday and said, look, I need to spend, I've decided I'm going to spend £1,000 a month for the next 6 months. You know, so to him that's a lot of money. In actual fact, it's not a huge amount of money for doing this stuff.
Yeah.
But even he's starting to sort of get it, and I think going forward, people are recognising what this stuff costs, and they're recognising the value of it. Going back to Mike Lieberman, he's running inbound campaigns, and sort of entry level would be sort of $12,000 a month, and he expects you to do that for 12 months. And we are in this country, anecdotally, I know agencies are getting, you know, 5, 7, maybe 10 in some cases, £1,000 a month for doing the inbound programs and digital marketing for companies. But you know, I haven't got any clients that pay us £5 grand a month, nothing, not even close to it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still not quite that recognition of the value it brings. You find yourself just having to take what's available in some respects. I mean, you don't always take a job, you know, just to get the money in, but sometimes you do. Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered that question. I just
No, that was perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Everyone else is really quiet. It's like there must be lots of questions.
I had a follow-up question. Others you can.
Okay.
No, I just wondered if you could maybe like go through a project that was a highlight for you, maybe why it was a highlight for you.
Yep. There's a really, really simple project that we've worked on. For this company, internet hasn't let us down. Basically, Cordula's German, I think. She lives in northwest England, so she speaks English in a sort of German, Northern English, like my accent. She's really down to earth, really nice to work with, and she's got a website, which it's not a particularly exciting field. Basically, people who've been ripped off, they've invested their pension in dodgy properties. I was going to say scams. They turned out to be scams. They weren't investing in scams, obviously. And she helps them. And she's been working with a guy, Royston, for quite a long time, and he's been chucking money at paid search. And anyway, the website, which still is quite a normal, ordinary looking website, but we knocked the website into shape, we knocked her paid search campaign into shape, and she came back and said, like, you'll need to turn the AdWords off. I can't actually cope with the number of leads I'm now getting. I mean, just completely turned it around really, really quickly. So that was a lovely project. And I mean, she, I think, I don't know if that'll work. Give me my, So if we look in the reviews, I think this is Cord that actually put this review in. There we go. Outstanding service, the quality of the work. So it was rewarding because we had some quick wins. We turned around her business and started getting the leads, which she really is sort of enjoying servicing, and then you get that kind of feedback. So it was just an all-round nice project. I didn't have a lot to do with it, maybe that's why it was successful. Julie and Karen and Dave and Rob were involved heavily in delivering it. So that's a nice little simple project. A slightly bigger project that's been really good fun is Master Industry. It was interesting because 6 months in, they started thinking, oh, we're going to stop doing this. You know, they were spending not a huge amount of money every month, but they were spending some money every month. They design and build retractable seating for stadiums, so quite a niche market. Probably for places in here, they might have even delivered their services in here. So they came to us with the English part of their website was embedded in their French website. So we took it out, created its own, put it on its own domain, so started from scratch basically with a brand new domain. And we've gone through a content inbound driven program with them. 6 months in, they were getting nervous because this stuff, I say to people, 6 to 9 months before you really start to see anything exciting, unless you're using paid search, which you get like obviously instant results. 6 months in, they were getting nervous. They decided to stick with it, and now they're just like one of our biggest fans because they're getting leads from governments all over the world. They're getting leads from large firms of architects all over the world. And in their words, you know, it would have cost them a fortune on the phone, going to conferences to get the kind of leads that they're now getting through their website. So that's been again, I haven't had a huge amount of involvement in this, so there's a theme here, isn't there? That's been a really good project as well. On the flip side, we've worked with people and after 12 months made very little progress. It was a small financial firm. They were going toe to toe with Hargreaves Lansdown, who are a multi-billion-dollar company, and they wanted to try and get into the market that company were dominating. And it didn't go so well. I think I actually wrote a blog post, can't be bothered finding it just now, I don't think it's important. But after they left us, the SEM rush graph kind of went, it was going up, so it was working, but it wasn't producing startling results, but it just fell off a cliff as soon as they left. But that's
So
another
with
story, I guess.
with that company, their master industry, did they literally come to you and say, okay, our English language website doesn't provide us any leads, and can you fix this? I mean, was it pretty much very simple?
Yeah.
They had a specific issue that they needed sort of solving, and then you just thought about how we could do, or the agency took all of that and then came up with a proposal, or how did
Yeah, they
you-
approached us looking for leads. So
Okay.
they understood that the website might have the capacity to generate a business
Mhm.
for them, but they weren't particularly well, going back to your point, they didn't really know what they needed, they didn't really understand it all. All they knew was their website didn't work, it didn't generate business for them. It was really funny because there was lots of back and forth emails. They preferred email at the time. My French is dreadful and their English was like my French, so emails kind of worked reasonably well. So there was lots of back and forth, and it actually got to the point where I kind of more or less said, look, it's going to cost this. If you want to do it, just tell me. You know, I was kind of getting like, oh, you know, it was just getting to that point. I never expected to hear from him, but he came back, great, let's do it. So the moral of that is sometimes being not obviously rude, but sort of quite firm with clients, you know, because they do dither around a bit. You know, it's a big commitment financially for them, but just don't be afraid to, you know, like, do you want to do it or not, kind of thing, which is what we did with them. And the guys went over to France in November to see the factory and actually meet them. You know, I think when they've been clients for quite a while, and quite often in this game you can have clients who you never meet. They're on the other side of the world maybe, or whatever, you just never need to meet them. But it's good to go and meet people and actually put a face to the name. I think it probably helps to keep the account going and helps to keep the relationship going. It's something I've probably not been that good at.
How do you drive your creative process, for example, in regards to the inbound marketing and the content? How do you develop creative ideas to have a compelling content for the client?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you work sometimes with some industries that are not particularly exciting. So, I mean, a lot of it will start, not surprisingly, with keyword research. So trying to understand, go back a stage. Develop the buyer personas. Who's the market? What are they looking for? What problems have they got? All that kind of thing. And then keyword research. Okay, we know we've got these problems. We know they're searching for this kind of content. The buyer personas should also tell you these guys kind of prefer videos, or they like blogs, or whatever it is. You know, they're big fans of Instagram or Pinterest or whatever. And then that kind of all feeds into, well, we know who they are, we know what their problems are, we know what they're looking for, and then trying to create content around that. Now that's, you know, like one of the persona for master industry will be architects. You know, and then what that architect needs is they need like specifications. They need to understand capability. So it's not particularly exciting content, but it's exactly what they need. So being creative can be important in some instances, but more important than being creative is actually understanding what the requirement is. And quite often it's not that creative, it's almost like spec sheets and statements of capability and case studies, that kind of thing. I mean, be prepared when you get out there, because when you're here, I'm sure you're getting some fantastic projects to work on. When you get out there, you know, your first thing might be like, we sell these nuts and bolts and we need you to do an inbound marketing campaign for us. It will be, it could be.
Things like persona creation and stuff that your clients will obviously have a lot of insight in. Do you try and do that as collaboratively as possible with them?
Yeah, there's very much a kind of, you know, bluntly put, you're kind of kneeling on the chest and punching them in the face until they give you the information you need. You've got to really kind of spend time with them and get under the skin.
Do you set time aside to go in and say, right guys, I want to come talk to you guys about
Yeah.
the people you deal with, and so we can, and then kind of sell that as a part of the process?
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes if they've worked with marketing companies, they'll kind of get it. They'll kind of understand this idea of ideal customers and things. But more often than not, you have to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. You know, even like as you know, you're even giving these personas names and an age and hobbies and interests, and you're trying to create a real person.
Yeah.
I think helping people understand that ultimately they sell to people, and understanding who those people are is important, is part of the process. And then, yeah, I don't get too involved in it. Julie does most of that stuff. She's a chartered marketer and marketing's her thing. So personas is not peculiar to digital marketing, it's something marketers have always done, so I believe. I don't know, I'm an engineer. But they certainly, she deals with it. If you've got any particular questions around it, I can give you her contact detail if you want to sort of explore that in a bit more detail.
It's just interesting. So I guess like doing things like that is hard for your clients to grasp the real value of sitting down and talking about. I guess like that in itself is quite a hard sell to get them to put time aside to come sit down and talk about theoretical characters. It
usually starts the conversation. From the little involvement I've had with it, but it usually starts like, who are your customers? Oh, everybody. Everyone's a customer. Yeah, you've obviously been there with that. So trying to get them to understand that it isn't everybody, or even if it is, you know, there'll be particular everybody's that we need to kind of go after, is interesting. Because a lot of people, I mean, if you're dealing with engineering companies, my background's heavy engineering, and quite often these people are not at all switched on to marketing. In Aberdeen, marketing's a bit of a strange thing because the oil industry's been so buoyant up until 2014 that we don't need to do marketing. Everybody just beats a path to our door and buys these oil tools at phenomenal prices and everything else. Well, that's changed now, so Aberdeen's changing. You know, they really are trying to go after other markets and things, and so there are opportunities coming up. But traditionally, I think, anecdotally from Julie and other people in marketing, marketing's always been a bit of a struggle in this area, but it's changing, thankfully. And certainly digital marketing is where it's at, you know, from the point of view of you guys going out there looking for jobs and things.
You've hinted at it, but it would just be interesting to hear what the sort of geographic spread of your clients would be. Are they mostly focused around Aberdeen and a few outliers, or are they just evenly all over the place?
I mean, I guess if you look at the 15-year history of the business, a lot of our revenue has come from local companies. But that's because we've had a few sort of cash cow businesses. The spread is pretty wide at the moment. Australia, America, France, nearly in Italy. That was quite funny. I had a long conversation with a guy in Italy, and then he finally said, yes, I've got £200 a month to spend. He was a lovely guy as well. You know, it was a great conversation, and but anyway. So yeah, again, the power of our website is bringing in these opportunities, and some of the things I do as well. We just put a proposal to a company in Kuwait, and it's quite funny because what I did was, a little tip for the future, it might work, it might not, I don't know. But on our live chat, with most live chat packages, you can actually watch people on your website. Not in a creepy way, obviously. Let's have a look. So what I did was I went into here. So there's live visitors on our website. So there's somebody in, they're in Kenya. Not going going to bother there just in a minute. Somebody in Israel. There's somebody there in Scottish Borders. And they're looking at our homepage, I think, but they've looked at other pages. So I kind of know what they're interested in because of what they've looked at. And so there was somebody on from Q8 that had been looking at what they were looking at, so you can just click on this and actually instigate a chat. Rather than do it automatically, you can say, I can see you've been looking at such and such, have you got any problems? So I did that, and that led to us, giving a proposal for a kind of Enemeki type company based in Q8. So that's kind of like using inbound in an outbound way. I wouldn't say it would be hugely successful, it was maybe just a beginner's luck with that particular one. But generally speaking, as you can see just now, from the spread of people that are on the site, and if I look at, if I just put Clicky up quickly, anybody use Clicky Analytics? Great tool. It's like Google Analytics, only you can actually use it and it works. Google Analytics is fantastic, but a lot of people find it quite confusing. Our clients, we give them this and it's just so easy to use. So if I just go through, let me go Red Evolution. So yeah, we had 521 visitors on our site yesterday, and that's there we go. That's the geographic spread of it. So you can see why we're getting opportunities based on that, predominantly UK, but quite a lot coming in from other places.
So Dave, is it then, when you talk about your site generates leads and stuff, is it then a combination of the live chat that you can launch whenever someone you think is a good prospect and then you engage with them directly, or is it the contact form that brings in most leads?
Yeah, it is. It's contact forms. So
Okay.
I mean, the process for us would be something like, let's just say somebody goes, what is SEO? Great. They carry out the search and they find us near the top of Google. They come onto this page and it's trying to help them, trying to educate them. So it's educational content. They can download an ebook. We get their contact details. Or they can say, actually, I wonder what my SEO is currently like. So they can ask to get it graded. They can come in and fill this form in, and then we can have a session with them and grade their website. We actually do a screen grab video and send them that.
Okay.
Which usually works. It usually works quite well. They're usually quite receptive, and then that might then lead on to an opportunity. So most opportunities are coming in via phone calls, emails, and web forms.
Okay.
The live chat is that's like a couple of weeks ago. I thought, I wonder what would happen if I did this,
All right. Okay.
rather than be passive and wait for them to engage in the live chat, which they do. I just thought I'd try it, and like I say, it's probably just beginner's luck. Most people, you invite them to chat and they just don't engage at all, so, which is what you would expect probably. So yeah, it's just, I mean, there are issues. People find out that you can have a conversation and then they eventually realise, oh, you're based where? And then suddenly they go quiet, because they just kind of thought you were somewhere else for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly helped us survive in a tough market, having this geographic spread. At least from a search point of view, we're getting opportunities.
Everywhere,
Yeah.
Are all of these systems all connected up to like a central CRM system? So
Yeah,
for
we use
example-
HubSpot. We're HubSpot partners. We resell HubSpot, and then we use it for our own inbound program as well. So our website is on a server, but our offer pages, which are often the pages that have got the forms on, the landing pages, they're actually in the HubSpot system. So as soon as people come in, sign in, they're actually entering data into our CRM directly.
Most of your biggest overheads monthly is all these different
Yeah,
software.
I mean, HubSpot's about 500 quid a month. It's more than that now. It's actually
Yeah.
about 680 quid a month. But I think, we've been on it for a while, and so we kind of locked in a good deal. And so, yeah, it's about 480 quid a month. We get some money back from HubSpot because we've introduced it to a few companies, and we get a little bit of a commission on that, which reduces the cost a little bit. But I'm just going to see if I can find an inquiry just to see if we can actually see how it works from the point of view of the software. Let me have a quick look. You know, this one came in yesterday. Really don't expect this to be a particularly
Obviously, none of this private stuff we can use in a video, yeah?
good
Yeah.
prospect.
All the,
Yeah, probably
email
a good
addresses
idea.
and stuff.
So they came in from organic search, website costs explained. They then went on to get a website quote, filled in the details, gave us a little bit of information, and then they wandered off and looked at our what is SEO page, I think. But they're now in the CRM. We can lead score them in the CRM. You know, I've got to be honest, we're not using HubSpot as well as we could be. We've been talking about this for the last week or so. We've got a bit lazy. There's lots of opportunities coming in. So the whole point of HubSpot and tools like it, like SharpSpring and the others, is that you can lead nurture. But we're kind of finding that we're getting so many opportunities that we're not really nurturing, but we're maybe missing opportunities by not doing that.
So
Not nurturing the better ones.
So I HubSpot kind of unnecessarily expensive in comparison to a lot of competitors you can get for 10%, 15% of price.
Yeah, Fifth Ring used to use SharpSpring, but they've got into a situation where clients were asking for things and SharpSpring didn't do it. Now we've had the SharpSpring demo from Brent, I can't remember his name, but really good guy and fantastic software and quite a lot cheaper. I mean, if you sign up for HubSpot, you're 680 quid a month and about 2.5 grand onboarding, something like that. Thereabouts, and they want you to sign a 12-month minimum contract as well. Now, if we sign up for SharpSpring, for about 300 quid a month, we will get our account and 2 licenses which we can resell, you know, out of that. So it's a lot cheaper, and it looks great. It looks really good. I'd like to try it, but we just haven't got around to it yet. HubSpot's good. It works. They're constantly evolving it, but it's not cheap, like you said. I think their entry level's about 200 quid now, is it, or slightly more? But that's only up to 100 contacts,
Yeah.
which for some businesses would be okay, because you could purge them and keep purging them, because like Master Industry, that's never going to be a high volume thing, so they could use it probably at that lower level. But you only get one subdomain, I think, as well, so you can either, you know, there's only one thing, you can put your blog on it or use it for your offers, but that's about it, quite limited. Have you looked at HubSpot and sort of investigated it?
Yeah, we actually been doing a little bit of research into Agile recently, just because the level of people, the size of people we're working with is certain cost as well. There's no need for us to dish out that much money. And for a lot of the stuff we do, it's CRM and email automation and stuff like that. And for a massively reduced price,
Yeah.
it does everything we use.
There's a tool for the Joomla CMS. I can't remember. It's called Marketing Rocket or something. It's a CMS plugin for Joomla CMS. It's only about 500 quid one off.
Yeah.
You know, and it does a lot of great stuff. So it's worth looking at. You know, if you use these tools properly, they more than pay for themselves. But if you just, you know, buy it and let it sit there, it's an expensive overhead.
Yeah.
And is there a reason that you kind of do everything on Joomla? Is it just kind of what the business started out using, or is it?
Yeah, we've certainly got
genuinely
involved.
easier for-
Got involved in Joomla at an early stage, and we know it inside out. We've got a lot of clients on WordPress. Not a huge fan, but they come along with a WordPress site and they need inbound marketing, so we don't always like rebuild the site. If it's really, really bad, we might rebuild it. No, I mean, any of these tools are fantastic if you use them in the right way. I think you hang your hat on something because you've got to develop expertise in one or the other. I'm certainly not, I'm not the sort of person who'll rant about how much better than WordPress Joomla is, or vice versa. I'm pretty much CMS agnostic. We just happen to use Joomla and we can make it sing and dance.
Yeah.
There's always people who'll say, oh yeah, Joomla's no good for SEO, which is nonsense. There's people who'll say it's too complicated, which it might look a bit at first, but it's actually not really. But again, I've lived with it for a long time. Gone from version 1 right through to current 3.5.8, I think is the latest one. So yeah, it works. There's no good reason to use it or not use it. I think Fifth Ring are big fans of Expression Engine, I think, which is apparently a great system. I have a lot to do with Expression Engine. And there's lots of others out there. New CMS is coming out all the time. Craft is a popular one with a lot of design agencies. But at the end of the day, they all just squirt HTML out of a web browser. You know, if they do that efficiently, then just use whatever you like using.
And what do you think of, because we don't teach it here, but things like Wix, websites built on Wix, because I wouldn't touch that kind of stuff, but sometimes small businesses appear to find that an easier solution for them or more accessible and stuff like that. So, and we teach WordPress basically because it's the most commonly used, and also similar to yourself, I've been using WordPress for a long, long time, so that's the one that I'm most comfortable teaching as well. And all my sites run on WordPress. But this whole notion of Wix, because I always try to recommend against it, having said that I haven't used it myself, you know, so I just wondered what your view was.
That's a great question. I'm just seeing if I can find a particular company. Can't see. The one that we're interested in is Squarespace. Now, we had somebody come to us recently with a Wix website, and they built it themselves, they like Wix, and they just want to stick with Wix. And I've got nothing against it. It's just a tool, and if you use it in the right way, it can work. I think it's all right. I think people want to sort of have a go at building their own website, and tools like that are great for doing that. And more so with Squarespace, you know, you've obviously maybe seen Keanu in the adverts standing on his motorbike and all that, and they're kind of getting high celebrities and people to endorse the product. The really interesting one with Squarespace, we've got a client who they sell cars and all kinds of other things, Finney 4x4, and he's got like a sub-brand which he's created, which is the Fierce pickups. So they take pickups and make them interesting. They do things to them. And he had an advert running on he had an advert running in the P&J, and he said to me, look, I don't really want to send them to Finney 4x4. I want to send them to a site that's just about the Fierce pickups. And so this was like Thursday afternoon, the advert was running on the Friday. Now, bear in mind, I'm not a designer, but I put that site together in a couple of hours for him. So I couldn't have really done that with Joomla. It would have been too much messing around. But not only that, I built it for him, charged him a couple of hours of my time, then handed it over to him, and him and his people have now started putting more stuff in there. And you know, he's really enjoying using the system. And so I think these website builders have become way beyond the systems that maybe you and I have seen in the past that are just like horrible, really horrible. I think they've come on leaps and bounds. I think we had experience with the Wix system a few weeks ago. A friend of mine had built herself a website, and there was some bits she couldn't figure out, so one of my lads, Callum, looked at it for her. It turned out he couldn't do what she needed. Wix system doesn't allow you to do it. But things like the Squarespace, I put that off because it's kind of getting annoying, isn't it? The thing about the Squarespace system is it's got some funky developer mode features. So you actually pull a Git repo down, tweak it, push it back. So you're actually you can get right under the hood with it and right under the skin, right down to the CSS, all the HTML, everything. And I think they've got a part to play. I've got a kind of mini project on the go at the moment to figure out, you know, somebody comes along, new start business, we need a website, we've got 500 quid, you know, bam, there you go. And it helps them start the process. They're not, you know, they're not going to some wannabe in their bedroom who builds them a truly awful WordPress website that's slow, hosted at mickeymouse.com, and it just doesn't work. They've actually got a world-class website, fully responsive, on a fast server that's mirrored all over the world. It's SSL right out of the box. Pretty good. And, you know, you might think if you run an agency like us that stuff's scary, but it isn't. Because making websites deliver value is where you make money. Anyone can build a website, and that's what these tools are doing. And if they help people build better websites as a platform for me to then come in with my team and help them generate leads from it, then that's a good thing, I think. So I think Wix looks to be growing up quite nicely. It looks quite good. Squarespace is phenomenal. It's a really great system. There are others, aren't there? Weebly, is it? We do get people asking us to analyse Weebly websites as well.
Weebly.
I think they're maybe catching up a little bit. I don't know, are they any good? You nodding? Is it-
I don't know, but I've heard the name. Yeah, it rings a bell. You always see, of course, Wix do have a lot of advertising on YouTube and stuff like that. So that's one of
It's the same with e-commerce, like Shopify have kind of nailed that. I mean,
Yeah,
that's my platform of choice if somebody needs, unless they've got like something really bespoke with like 30,000 products and all that, it might be Magento or some of the other systems. But if somebody just needs a shop to sell 100 products and they need it quickly and they need it to be responsive and they need it to be not very expensive and they need point of sale, well, what's not to like?
I mean-
The only thing not to like about these systems is, it's a tiny thing, is that Squarespace is hosted, I think, in America, and Shopify is hosted in Canada,
Okay.
and the physical location of the server is a small ranking factor. So be careful and make sure if you're using like a top level domain like a .com, just make sure you tell Webmaster Tools that actually we're going after the UK market, even though it's hosted in America. Things like
I
that.
think the only other addition I wanted to make is I think the key point that you mentioned as well is because there are a lot of small businesses, for them an investment of 500 is a lot, while what you can really get for that is basically nothing, right? And then maybe Wix and these kinds of Squarespace sort of fill that gap because it will
Yeah.
take us a lot less time to produce them. And the client, they don't see a difference. They don't see, they don't care about whether you sweat for 2 days trying to build a really amazing work. When the result just looks really good as well.
Yeah.
So I think it might, in that case, then work for both parties. Yeah. So this kind of in-between format,
Yeah.
because there's no point in trying to sell to a small client with a budget of whatever £500. A WordPress site that'll take you a lot longer.
There is, I was trying to find it and I can't remember the name of it. There's a company in London and they specialise in building Squarespace websites.
Okay.
But their entry level is £2,500. So even
Okay.
though they're using the
Okay.
Squarespace platform,
Okay.
they're saying we'll do it all for you and help you with it.
Mhm.
And it's like £2,500, I don't know if it's £5,000, £7,000 sort of
Mhm.
thing. So there's money to be made by
Mhm.
being a specialist Squarespace
Okay.
developer.
Mhm.
If you actually use that platform to create something that adds value to the company you're building it for, I don't have any issue with them at all. I think, great.
How often do you get people coming to you saying we want X, Y, and Z, and you end up delivering A, B, C?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. This goes back to the point you were making earlier about people not really knowing, what is it that saying that customers don't know what they need until you give them what they ask for and they realise it's not what they need, something like that. It's actually cleverer than that, but that's the gist of it. And again, that's when you're sussing people out and you think, right, if they're coming to you, this is what we need, and they're not prepared to listen, you know what I mean? It makes it tricky. But nearly always, I did one yesterday, I did a proposal yesterday for a company, and they've said, we need a price for this, this and this. And I've gone back to them and said, no you don't, this is what you need. It needs to be on a retainer for 6 months and it'll be a programme of work to achieve this goal. Now they may come back and say, we asked you for a price for this, this and this. Or they might go, right, you know what I mean? So I think what you've got to do as practitioners is depend on your expertise. And if you know what's right for them, be confident enough to try and persuade them of that. Because you'll probably find as you get out there later this year, maybe or whenever, that you'll come up against that a lot. People who think they know, and it goes back to this idea that people don't like to admit that they don't understand this stuff. You quite often find, interestingly, people who are marketers and they're maybe running a marketing department in a company, and they're the worst because they kind of realise they really should know about it. And you get two schools. You get those that kind of go, I should know about this and I don't, can you help me? And the other ones that pretend they know about it and tell you what you need to do, and they're the harder ones to persuade that maybe that's not the right thing to do.
Did you already refuse clients for that reason?
Sorry?
Did you already refuse clients because they didn't want
Yeah, I think, a good question. I think it's important to recognise when there isn't a good fit. It's hard if you're starting an agency and you really want the work, but it's important to be honest with yourself and say to people, we're not the right people to help you. There's probably hardly a week goes by that doesn't happen to us. A lot of the time it's because they've got unrealistic expectations. You've got really kind of not very healthy budgets, and you just know that you'd be struggling to deliver anything of value. And like you said, to some people, spending 500 quid a month's a fortune. I'm spending £500 a month, why am I not number one in Google for car insurance? It's like, you will have conversations like that, and so I've found that being really straight and honest with people is the best approach. It might not be the most commercially prudent approach. You know, tell them what they want to hear, take their money and hope for the best is how I think a lot of people operate.
I guess you probably end up in a
I'd
worse
struggle with that.
situation though if you do that, because you end up down the line, you know, with them having expectations that you're unable to fulfill or that you know, don't want to fulfill. So.
Yeah, but a lot of the conversations we have is, you know, the term like a whipping boy. Like, right, we want to speak to you about SEO, but I'll tell you right now, we've been working with another company and they've ripped us off and it's been no good and it's your fault. You know, it's kind of like, you know, that's quite common. They've had a bad experience. So what I'm saying is there's lots of agencies and small sort of like one-person operations who are not that bothered about taking money off people even though they know they can't deliver. Quite a lot do.
But how candid are you with that? I mean, because it is a smallish scene in Aberdeen still with the agencies and the people know people and stuff. So how, I mean, do you have, if you can't take a certain thing on or whatever, do you have, you don't need to mention names, agencies that you would maybe recommend them to take that particular area, or would you advise against specific ones, or do you, I mean, or is, how does it work?
I wouldn't advise against any agencies, neither is there an agency in Aberdeen that I would probably, with few exceptions, there isn't an agency in Aberdeen that I would recommend people go to if they were specifically looking for inbound. I think there are, maybe controversial, I'm going to say, I think there are pretenders. There are people who kind of say things but they don't really get it, and it's not hard to figure out when you look at their websites that they don't get it themselves. And it's a good point that, you know, if you can't help a company, it's always good to try and point them in someone's direction. But usually if it's financial, it's kind of pointing them to a freelancer who's got much lower overheads who might be able to help out, that kind of people like Helen maybe. That's certainly the conversation Helen and I had. You know, she's got a contract where she can't cope with the size of it, she could maybe speak to us, and if I've got somebody who's got, you know, 30 bob and fried fish of a budget, then right, go and speak to Helen, sort of thing. That kind of thing.
There's only one question left on our list.
Oh really?
So if you could give yourself one piece of advice in 2003, what would it be, or whenever it was 2006 when you started out?
3, yeah. Be calmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the early days I used to get really wound up because people seemed to be willfully not understanding what I was trying to do for them, and you know, I think just being a bit more laid back. I'm a lot more laid back now, but I think in the early days I was maybe trying too hard. Yeah, just go with the flow a bit more. Having a clearer idea would have maybe helped, but it's a fast-changing industry, and I didn't really know where it was going. So I don't think the advice would have been around the commercial aspects of it. Definitely follow your heart. Do what you enjoy doing if you're able to. I know it sounds like a real cliche, but I'm not making a fortune. We make a decent living, but I love it, and that's really important to me. So yeah, maybe just be a bit calmer. It's not much of an advice, is it really? Not much in the way of, you know, deep, thoughtful advice, but you're always going to find people who will criticise you, who don't believe what you're telling them, who don't have any money but expect you to do loads of work and all that kind of stuff. In fact, if I could just add that on, be very, very careful about working for free or even working for a very low fee. It's a really easy thing to do. There'll always be people out there in our line of work, and we're not really IT. I don't see this as an IT industry at all. It's a communications industry, but IT is the same. If you know about IT, there's a line of people who want you to help them. Oh, my computer doesn't work and all that kind of thing. It's the same with this. There'll people, you know, do this for me and there'll be loads more work. All of these kind of like, just don't do it. Value what you know and what you do. Once you've kind of maybe proven yourself, I mean, by all means take on an internship or a project to try and get some experience and what have you, but don't be afraid to charge for your time and value it.
I had one question as well, which sort of like, well, a couple of questions, but one was in terms of because you mentioned a few times now the commercialisation and the thinking about business commercially and stuff like that, and is it fair to say, because from the industry blogs and stuff that I read, is it fair to say that agencies from clients are much more under scrutiny in terms of proving return on investment and these kinds of commercial considerations? And how do you manage to provide that evidence to clients, or is it not something that they ask? I mean, basically, has there been a change in recent years? I mean, obviously Aberdeen itself, yes, because of the oil and gas, but it's certainly something that I've read in industry as well, that it's getting more like that.
Yeah, I think where it's ultimately going is probably pay per lead.
Okay.
So you'll actually get paid on results purely. I think it's problematic. I mean, marketing isn't an exact science, is it? It's an art, and it's a bit of luck, and it's techie, and there's all kinds of movable parts or moving parts involved in marketing. So I think people who want absolutes are being unreasonable, but I think you're right. I think, you know, people are using that language now, definitely, you know, like what exactly is this going to deliver? Somewhat glibly, you can flip it over and say, well, if you don't do anything, nothing will happen. Your website will continue to get beaten by your competitors, etc. But that isn't necessarily what they want to hear. You don't very often get a very good reaction to that. The nice thing about it, as you guys will know only too well, is that everything we do can be measured. So it is trial and error, but we can see what works and what doesn't work, and we can show them where their money's gone. Sometimes that might be, we spent 10 grand on this and nothing happened. It just didn't happen. It should have. We don't know why it didn't. We're trying to figure out why it didn't, but it didn't. But that's no different to any sort of advertising and marketing since Mad Men. You know, they try things. I mean, we all look at TV adverts from time to time and go like, what were they thinking? It's just awful, you know, really. And then others where they nail it, you know. And a group of people sat and figured out that this awful advert was exactly what this company needed, you know, and they put a load of money into it. And like, you know, you're getting it, obviously. I mean, you just look at it and you think, man, you know, what were you thinking? So it's the same with what we do. So I think the education is make them aware that it's not an exact science, but make them aware that you can measure it, you can see what works, what doesn't work, and then hopefully do more of the stuff that works. That's just a lot of waffle, didn't really answer your question because it's a difficult one to answer. But you're right, they want to see what they're getting for the money. We recently started using a points-based system for charging. So they can buy points are like 100 quid, they can buy 20 points, and then we can use that in any which way they want. And it's kind of getting into we're trying to price by value as opposed to just selling time. Try and avoid selling time if you've got an agency. Don't do it. Try and sell the value of what you do. That's kind of working reasonably well because they know that, right, so I need a blog post on this. It's like, right, well, that's going to be 2.5 points or 5 points if it's a big, whatever it is, you know. But it's all right. So it's a thing that costs this amount of money. Because a lot of the time, people get confused about hourly rates and things. But again, back to the whole education thing. It's people don't know how long things take. I need a website, how long will that take? I mean, you know, I need a website, how much will that cost? You know, every week someone will ask me that question. So, about the same as a car, it's usually the response. They don't really appreciate that usually. So cost and everything else and value and return on investment is, I think some people are more on it than others in terms of making guarantees. And Mike's been talking a lot, Mike Lieberman's been talking a lot about this. He's heading towards a cost per lead. I think if you think about the pay per lead model, if I said that to Master Industry, I could say, well, first of all, total disclosure, what's that lead worth? Well, actually, it was actually worth £250,000 quid. Right, well, I want 30,000 quid for that lead then. Oh, no, we'll just pay you £2 grand a month to do the marketing, please. You know, because if you want us to invest our time and risk our income or whatever, you know, then there's got to be a payback. If you search Google, I think it might still be there, pay for performance or PFP, pay for performance SEO. You probably find it somewhere near the top, but when you land on the page, it explains why we didn't do it. Because Yeah, because it's a fool's errand, I think, basically. But yeah, you make a good point that we need to measure and show at least show what we did and show what happened, even if it's not what they hoped for.